Right now, save 50 to 70% off absolutely everything at Gap Factory. Even better, get 40% off clearance styles plus t-shirts from $4.99 and shorts from $9.99. And just in time for summer, save 50 to 70% off the entire store at Banana Republic Factory. Plus 50% off clearance and doorbuster dresses and polos starting at $19.99. Only at Banana Republic Factory stores. Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.
TV party tonight! TV party tonight! TV party tonight! TV party tonight! We're gonna have a TV party tonight! Alright! We're gonna have a TV party, alright! Tonight! We've got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Everybody's gonna hang out here tonight! Alright! We'll pass out on the couch! Alright! Tonight! We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Don't talk about anything else. We don't wanna know. We're dedicated to our favorite shows.
And tonight, our favorite show, and it really is Cobra Kai, Do or Die. Cobra Kai, brought to you by the good people at YouTube Red. And I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I sweep the leg, Johnny, Mr. Mark Radulich. There is no mercy in this dojo. Here are the guest panel for tonight. Very excited about this. They're so excited that we threw this up on the schedule. It wasn't planned, but we were all so enraptured by Cobra Kai that we had to talk about it. So here they are. First, from our Canada office, Hong Kong Phooey himself, Andrew Graham. How do you do, sir?
Pretty good, Mark. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm amped, man. I'm pumped for this. I'm excited to talk about this show.
There is no weakness in this dojo.
That's what everyone keeps telling me. And we got together last night to do a little watch along of Fit Finlay. He's the punchy pugilist. He's totally 80s. Pat Mullen. How do you do, sir?
Try to make it last. Nothing you can do. In a photograph, the innocence you thought you lost is staring back at you. Whoa, young hearts beat fast, driving down the road, rubber, plastic, metal, glass. Why did you have to go? Young hearts die young when they're all alone, and there's no turning back now.
Wow.
Welcome to the Karaoke and Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Pat. That was lovely. And
Pat, I'll have you know that I was holding my phone up in the air and swaying it rhythmically.
I need to please.
If you weren't holding up a lighter for that, then you just have no soul. And speaking of no soul, he's the disapproving dad and the host of source material in his own right. Ladies and gentlemen, strike first, strike hard. Jesse Starcher, how you doing, sir?
Quiet! Oh, my goodness. Every time I heard that on my TV, it was just, I was filled with such glee for some reason. Man, we're going to have a lot of fun talking tonight about how things have changed in this world of Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, and I'm glad I get to talk about it with you guys. I'm ecstatic.
All right, let's get right into this. There's a lot to unpack with this episode. First, I just want to kind of gauge the room here. We're all fans of the original Karate Kid. Let's just go around the table. I know I was a huge fan of the movie. Loved the first one, liked the second one, don't remember the third one, haven't seen any of the ones after that. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm going to say fair fan of the first one. I think I've maybe only seen the second and third ones once. I think the actual first one in this series that I saw was the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank, which was okay-ish. And I was neutral on the Jaden Smith one. Actually, sorry, I'll say that Jackie Chan was, but there's no reason it should have been called the Karate Kid.
Okay, Hulk, you want to weigh in here?
Well, you know something, brother.
Oh, Jesus.
Ever since I seen that buck-toothed girl who got fired from 90210 from a lack of acting skills, dude, it made me sick to my stomach, brother, that I had to see this Karate Kid come out and desecrate what the Daniel-san brother had built ahead of time, dude. And then I had to fight through nepotism, brother, not like I had with Brutai, who was my brother. But I had to watch some Hollywood hotshot dude throw his son into a movie with a fallen star, brother, and call it Karate Kid. You might as well put the Hulkamania label, brother, on some second-generation nobody, brother.
I respectfully request not to follow Pat anymore throughout the rest of this podcast.
I think
Hulk,
Pat
said Hulk. We're talking about an 80s subject. It was unnatural.
Pat obviously prepped for this a lot more than I did.
No, this is
man.
no prep.
If by
It's
prep
not
you
a
mean,
gimmick, brother. This is a shoot.
I was going to say, if by prep you mean drank, then yes. You know, it's funny. I called him Hulk because I was thinking of the Incredible Hulk because of all the growling he was doing. I did not see a Hulkster impression coming. Jesse, Karate Kid, go.
Wow. Yeah, 1984, Karate Kid came out. I may have watched that once or twice. The one that sticks with me is part 2. And I don't know if that's just because I can remember being at my babysitter's and it was on HBO at the time. And there was... So I watched it like over and over during one summer. You know, I'd catch it at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon on HBO, and it was always part 2 that seemed to resonate with me for some reason. I can pick out a lot of moments throughout that movie, and I think it's been quite some time since I've actually watched the original Karate Kid. Believe it or not, and I immediately wanted to after we talk about this show. Well, I still haven't had the chance. I think it's something I want to be sitting down and watching with my son because he was really into this series. So yeah, there you go. And part 3, I don't even remember what happens in that one, and I did not watch the 1994 Next Karate Kid. I can tell you the Karate Kid with Jaden. Is it Jaden Smith? Is that his name?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I did watch that, and Caleb, unfortunately, is a Justin Bieber fan. Ugh. Pains me to say. So, I've seen plenty of clips from that show, and I think I've watched it once.
Okay, so let's get into the announcement that they were going to do a Cobra Kai series. What was your reaction to this? I know mine was skepticism. Now, Pat and I are both fans of the show Fuller House. And despite my reservations with that, Pat and I have actually reviewed a couple of seasons of this so far, and it's not as horrible as we thought it might have been. We haven't given One Day at a Time a chance yet because reasons, and I'm not going to get into that now.
One Day at a Time sucks.
Yeah. In so few words, you said it. But, you know, these 80s reboot shows that are coming out on like Hulu and Netflix and now YouTube Red, mixed bag, and there's some trepidation with them that they're going to treat the source material with some degree of respect. And so I know for me, when I saw that there was a Cobra Kai series, I was like, you know, I'm interested. I think it's a fascinating thing to sort of look at things from Johnny's perspective, you know, decades later. But I wasn't totally sold on watching the show at first. How about you, Andrew? They announced that they're going to do a Karate Kid 30 years later online TV show, and your reaction is what?
My reaction was, oh my god, someone took that joke on How I Met Your Mother way too far. Because that's what immediately came to mind. There's an episode of How I Met Your Mother called Bro Mitzvah, where basically the character of Barney Stinson recounts how Johnny's actually the hero of the Karate Kid. This has since spawned a fairly involved bit of research into this. Like, there's a guy who has about a 15-minute thing on YouTube that I haven't watched all of because it got tedious after a while, basically outlining all the ways of it. So kind of we call it the Stinson theory of the Karate Kid. And I saw the initial promo, and it's like, wow, I don't believe they're taking it this far, and I'm a little worried this could get really stale really fast. Luckily, spoiler alert, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, agreed. Jesse, I'm going to let you go next, and I'll let Pat back clean up, because
you
never know where Pat's going to go next.
Now, I will tell you that I had a lot of skepticism as well. Just thinking that we have two actors here. I had no idea what the premise was going to be. I just thought it was going to be them revisiting the rivalry between the two. But I didn't realize we were going to be looking at a story from Johnny Lawrence's side of things. So I was like, man, these actors, I don't even know what Ralph Macchio's been in the last 10 years. And I had no idea what the actor's name who played Johnny was. And so I was like, man, I don't know how far they can get. And I really discounted it because it was going to be on YouTube Red. If it was something that was going to be great and spectacular, it should be something that would be released on Netflix. So I was like, well, this is going to be the start of YouTube Red trying to get their foothold in this. And they've been around for a little while. I've been seeing ads, trust me, every time I open up YouTube about YouTube Red, and I got to hit no thanks every time. But this was going to be the first shot at getting a good show on there. And I was like, okay, well, it's going to be a first shot. I probably shouldn't expect much. So, yes, I had no high expectations for this thing whatsoever going into it.
Pat?
What really sold me on the potential of this being good was the initial trailer when they actually put one out. When they announced it, I was on the fence because of 80s revivals or reboots or rehashes, I would say 3 out of every 10 are decent to very good. For, every Fuller House, you get a bunch of Thundercats and a bunch of One Day at a Time and bunch of horse shit. But this was actually, the trailer had me intrigued. It took the premise seriously without making it a joke version of what we had seen. And I was cautiously optimistic. I would not have been optimistic without that trailer. But that one sold me. The second one was better. And as it got closer to the actual series premiere, I was like, I think this is going to be really good.
So let's get into the series. I don't want to do an episode by episode breakdown. I want to talk about characters. I want to talk about themes. Let's start with character arcs first. Let's look at our lead here, which is Johnny. I love the idea, and I'm going to give you guys a chance to kind of weigh in on my sort of conversation starters here. But I love the idea that the way not only losing to LaRusso caused him to have reservations in his life and make some bad decisions, but how he was treated by Kreese at the end of the Karate Kid, being choked and everything else, just sent him down this path where where he doesn't believe in himself and he's just sort of drifting through life. And and it's decades of that. It's 30 years of him just existing. It's inertia that carries him forward. He abandons his family. He's just doing a dead-end job. He says right in the first episode, "I live here because I don't want to have to talk to anybody." I thought it was an interesting take on the character that these events at the end of the Karate Kid would weigh so heavily on him. What did you think about that, Andrew?
I think Willem Zabka, the both the character and the actor, I think just really sold this series. If that didn't work, it all fell apart. I think he portrayed the character with a lot of pathos, with a lot of sympathy, and I think with a lot of conflict as well. I think as we go on and we talk about this, like, he is a conflicted character the entire time. whether it be how he's training his students, how he reacts to situations, things like that. He's also a character, and I think this is going to be a really common theme in this series when we get talking about Danny, is that, he's also definitely a character who's somewhat trapped in his own past, whether that's positive or negative, and definitely has a little bit of a very strong connection to those high school days that for better or worse he won't let go. But I found his character was great, and I looked at his Wikipedia page, and after watching this, I'm like, why the hell hasn't this guy been acting longer? He's really good.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
And you know what? Not bad in the martial arts side of things either. I mean, Karate Kid series is not The Raid. It's not Daredevil. You're not going to be watching it for great choreography, but he did some believable stuff, so I'm down with that.
I think one of the things that you see through Johnny's eyes, and it's very relevant today, and Jesse, this is where I want you to weigh in, because I know this is what you've been dying to talk about, so let's just get to it. What is a bully? Because this really turns the idea... Now, if you have kids, you know that right now bullying is a hot topic, and it will not be tolerated. And and if you're mean to another kid, you will be expelled and sent to the moon.
Fucking dude. I will pitch in a story right after you're done, because my son got sent home today. Emergency school removal. It's so funny. Boy. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well... just real quick, my son was by somebody who was getting choked. Okay, this other kid grabbed this other kid by the throat and was choking him. Now that's a bully move. That's some bully bullshit going on right there.
Say that's an assault, is what it is.
Yes, it is. And Caleb apparently pitched in and said, "Choke him harder." Now. Yeah, I have issues. Okay, we don't have to get into all that. But then, of course, Caleb trying to save his ass, I assume, or maybe he's telling the truth. He said he thought they were playing. Now, I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, my son has never intended to hurt anybody. So I tend to lean towards the fact that, maybe he thought they were kidding. But guess what? His ass got sent home today. And it's been an interesting evening here at the Starcher household. So let's talk about bullies again, Mark.
Okay. I don't know if I want to go on with this. No.
Why not?
No, don't worry about it, Pat. It's a fairly serious topic, and I think there's two sides to it. There's the overemphasis on bullying, and every child is a Fabergé egg, and their self-esteem is the most precious thing in the world, and we have to protect them from the slings and arrows of society, which is dealt with in this show about how much that's a lot of nonsense. And,
oh God, maybe the best part of this whole show.
Yeah,
had that moment.
Right, and I want to flesh that out and talk about it and get reactions. But then the other side of it is that bullying, hazing, and all of those things really can be damaging. And so it's not as straightforward and clear as I think people want it to be, and people make it out to be. And you see the idea of struggling with defining a bully and what a bully does and what you should do about it with William Zabka's Johnny Lawrence character, because he throughout the story he says he was a bullied kid. He was bullied by his stepdad, and he found the Cobra Kai dojo as a place of belonging, and it gave him confidence, and it gave him strength, and it pushed him forward. And then he, in turn, ends up now... and this is another thing I love about this, and I do want to talk about it. It turns the hero arc of the Karate Kid on its head when you hear him interpret the events of that movie, where, Danny was moving in on his girlfriend, and, then he gets beat up by an old man. So go ahead and speak to that, Jesse, about the idea of dealing with such a hot button issue as bullying through this one character.
Yeah, it's real simple, and it's a phrase that you've heard many, many times over throughout your life. There's always two sides to every story. And that is what they do in this series so very well. They show you just where Johnny's coming from, what kind of a history he has. Yeah, the events that link these two guys together in Karate Kid, that first movie, is pretty much what this is based upon, and that was an impactful thing. And the fact that he comes out as, he got the shit end of the stick. When you compare Daniel's life to Johnny's life now, 30-some years later, even though he may have been perceived as a bully, it really, you can see that wasn't the case, and just how much that affected him. How it even got to where he joined that dojo to Cobra Kai to try and just build some confidence, do something with himself. And then at the end of that first movie, just because he lost to an illegal kick, his sensei proceeds to beat the shit out of him. I mean, you can't help but feel for Johnny in this case. And I mean, I that's what I think sticks out the best, and what these writers did is by showing you that, okay, look, yeah, that guy, he's got a shitty attitude. Yeah, that guy treats people like ass. But put yourself in his shoes. And that's, I think, the beauty. That's where the triumph of this series is.
Pat, why don't you go ahead? We've thrown a lot out there. I just want to get your general reactions, and you really reacted hard to the idea of maybe we're overdoing it on trying to, on saying what a bully is. So go ahead and let your heart speak.
Like, listen, a bully is somebody who acts out for whatever reason they have on somebody else who doesn't deserve the treatment. That's what a bully is, okay? It's displaced anger at somebody who did not cause something to upset you, but you take it out on them anyway. So, basically, this entire series is based around someone who became a bully, took it out on really somebody who didn't necessarily deserve it in Daniel. Before we romanticize Johnny as a hero too much, let's remember that in The Karate Kid, Johnny and Allie had broken up. They were done. Daniel is literally meeting her for the first time and talking to her and trying to stop him from breaking her radio because he's acting like a creep. So before we go ahead with Johnny's really the hero, let's remember he was a butthead to start the whole thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, some of what happens to him. Now, did he deserve to get choked out by Kreese? No. But, did he deserve to get kicked in the face by Danny? Absolutely. That was his comeuppance for being the villain of the movie. And
so let's get a frame of reference in for that at least.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I wanted to shift to what to what happens in the show, because this is the most interesting thing about him is that on the one hand, let's take his interactions with not even Miguel, because I think Miguel, I think his interactions with Miguel aren't nearly as bad as the interactions he has with Hawk.
Yes.
Okay, this is a really great example of how are you supposed to this is so complex. This is so no, I don't want to go with and say complicated, but it's a very layered relationship, because on the one hand he's making fun of his deformity. Okay, he is making fun of his physical. This is something that the kid can't control and has no control over, and he's he keeps calling him Lip, and he's making fun of him, and he drives them out of the dojo momentarily, but that interaction has the effect of having the kid take a look in the mirror and taking Johnny's advice of, what, if you want to distract people from one thing, give them something else to look at. So he comes in with this, with this mohawk hairdo and a tattoo of a hawk on his back. He became my favorite character of the whole show.
Oh yeah. Well, and the lesson Johnny gives him, when they have that and he's calling him Lip, because he has a surgical scar above his lip where apparently he had some kind of cleft palate or what have you and needed it to be surgically repaired, so left the scar. So he continually refers to him as Lip. And, the annoying friend of Miguel's, I forget his name, but
Dimitri.
the guy Dimitri, yes, thank you. who is probably all of our least favorite characters. Raise your hand. Yeah, everybody's raising their hand.
Mm-hmm.
So he gives Johnny this speech about how you shouldn't make fun of people for their appearance or what have you. And Johnny basically laughs it off and says, do you think that's how the real world works, that nobody's going to point at his lip and make fun of him for it? And basically gives him a life lesson, and a hard life lesson, but a necessary one in that, listen, if you don't want people to do that, then do something about it. So step one was coming back with the blue mohawk. Step two was learning Cobra Kai karate and learning how to just, when somebody starts messing with you, punch them in the mouth. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, so and it takes us back to, and I want to get Andrew's thoughts on this, and then we'll move on to something else. But it really just take it back to, there are no clear bad guys and good guys in this show. Everybody is layered and complicated, from Johnny to Danny to Miguel to Robbie. Even the daughter is is a bit complicated. In as far as, do you root for her or are you supposed to root against her? There are some clear assholes on the show. The blonde friend, for example, the blonde girl who gets the front wedgie. There's nothing redeemable about her. She's terrible. Kyler's terrible too. The girl who Danny's daughter likes at first. The Asian kid with the pompadour. But the main characters, the main group of characters, are very layered, and the show just keeps turning the mirrors and everything on who you're supposed to root for and who are the bad guys in this thing, and it's never really clearly laid out. What do you think about that, Andrew? Because I don't see many shows where there's no clearly delineated line between who you're supposed to root for and who you're supposed to root against.
I think that's kind of one of the more genius parts of the series, because when you look at kind of martial arts culture and the way it's been interpreted in the West and things like that, it often comes off as morality tales. I mean, you could kind of argue that the first movies are morality tale, where it's, Scrappy Danny, working his way up with a good master to fight the guy who's a bully of a bad master. And there's, you can take that frame to a lot of different things. I mean, one of my all-time favorite movies is David Mamet's Red Belt, which, if you have any love of jiu-jitsu, go give that one a watch, because there's actually some really good stuff in it. Anyway, that's where this gets really interesting, because, like I said, the martial arts movies, especially here, tend to get tagged in these morality tales because of the thoughts of honor and codes of conduct and things like that, and that varies from place to place, and we can probably get into that later. But with this one, everyone's in shades of gray. I mean, Johnny's definitely got his shades of gray. I mean, he's not my kind of sensei, but I mean, there you go. Danny is definitely holding on to grudges he doesn't need to hold on to. We see kind of Miguel, who I think through the first 3/4 of the series was really kind of the guy that I think everyone was relating to, and then he took a dark turn near the end, arguably. Even Hawk to some level. I mean, there's so many layers to everybody involved in this, and it is a really well thought out, really well written, really well acted series in terms of kind of the complexity of these characters. So
let's shift our focus now over to Danny. Now, and I liked what you said there, Andrew. You said, part of what makes up his character is he's holding on to grudges. That a man at this, who's married to... Can I just take a sidestep? Was his wife not another Adrian? Am I wrong about that? Because she rubbed me the wrong way through the entire show.
She was not anywhere near as bad as Adrian, who we all know is the actual villain of the entire Rocky series.
Goddamn right.
But she really was not as bad. The scene where Daniel and Johnny are like standing off by Daniel's pool, she is actually the real voice of reason in that regard, and kind of does the actual parenting of Daniel's kids for a lot of the moments of the show. Like when she takes away Sam's phone and stuff, I'm like, you know what? I get it. Good mom. When she tells Daniel, the idea of him and Johnny fighting each other in their 50s at their pool is ridiculous. Yeah, she's not wrong.
Okay.
As much as
Funniest line of the whole series to me came in that scene. I could eat.
It's good stuff. You're half right, Pat. She parents one of the kids. Nobody's parenting that boy.
Oh, that shithead.
Oh my God, who wanted to punch the TV set when he ordered the second PlayStation Vita?
Little shit.
if there was a character we liked less than Dimitri, it might have been Anthony.
Yeah, he's the worst. I liked Kyler more than him. In any case,
to be fair, I think they were hinting at a bit of a turn for him even at the very end of the show, which maybe we'll see in season 2.
Yeah, I think he realized how kind of badass his dad is. I put badass in quotes there, but I mean, yeah, he realizes that, hey, this
Karate's awesome.
Karate, yeah, karate is,
oh yeah,
and it's going to teach him some discipline. So I can't wait to see that shit happen.
Well, what's been implied is that he tried karate with his daughter, and then they both fell out of it. And I'm guessing by the time the son was old enough to have done it, Daniel had stopped doing it. So I don't think he ever knew his father as a badass karate guy. I think he knew his father as the corny car salesman, and he just grew up a fat rich kid. But let's get back to Danny proper. I mentioned the thing about the wife because, yes, I don't disagree with you, Pat. The scene where she's telling them to both knock it off and come in for breakfast and talk like adults, I think was probably her high point of the series. The scene shortly after he kicks the cup out of the coffee or whatever, the boba tea out of the one car dealer's hand and all of that stuff, and she's just nagging at him. I'm like, I don't know. On an Adrian scale of 1 to 10, maybe she's 2 Adrians in that scene. Is that fair?
It's fair, but at the same time, you got to realize that they're operating in a world that is not the world of Rocky. It's the world of you literally just kicked at the hand of a rival car dealer for no apparent reason. Like, instead of, shifting business tactics or doing whatever, you decided, I'm just going to go kick him in the hand and knock his tea all over, and as a lesson to him that I can do this to his face.
Yeah, that wouldn't have ended in a lawsuit or Danny being arrested or anything. No, of course not.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Danny is your paragon, your righteous hero. And just like as we talked about Lawrence, everything gets turned on its head to where, in a lot of this, he's kind of the villain. And it's like you can see he's sympathetic. You can see where he's coming from. He knew Cobra Kai as this dangerous thing in the community. These people tried to break his legs twice.
Mm-hmm. More than that.
Yeah, I was actually just reading the plot synopsis for Karate Kid 3.
Karate Kid 3 being the best of the series, mind you.
Okay, sure. But, I sympathize where, in his mind, he was like, no, I was there when Cobra Kai was a cancer on the karate community. We don't want this thing to come back. And he's yelling this in 2018 in a world where, where all these wimps and losers and geeks and dweebs need this thing in order to build up their own self-esteem. He doesn't see the need for it, which he has a solution for that, which we'll get to a little bit later, which I loved. But in the meantime, he's just trying to tear down this thing that everybody else is trying to keep alive, because he's the only one that sees it as a bad thing. And he goes about it in such underhanded ways to where I think halfway through the series, I sent a message to you guys going, is it weird I'm rooting for Johnny? Because, he causes everyone's rent to go up in that strip mall. He tries to get them continually banned from the tournament. He does other stuff to make Johnny's life miserable. It's like he's become, in that sense, his wife is absolutely right. He's becoming out of control, and he's like, you're not the good guy that I married. You're becoming something else. You're becoming a monster. and Danny's sitting there wrestling with, but I know I'm right. This is all terrible, and it has to go away. What did you think about that, Andrew?
I mean, yeah, I mean, that was kind of one of the frustrating things because, I mean, Danny's, I think we all kind of, bring any baggage with him from what, we had seen in the earlier movies. And it's just this, I think you're right, it's just the struggle that he has to let go of any grudge he has against Johnny, against anything associated with Cobra Kai. And I mean, I can't necessarily blame him either. Like, I mean, the guys from Cobra Kai and Kreese were just toxic. And I mean, I think you'd be definitely wary of that. But on the flip side of it, I mean, you're right. He does some really underhanded shit to try and get back at Johnny. I mean, as Pat pointed out, Johnny's no angel. I mean, there's that little billboard incident in there, and a few other things that kind of egged him on, but I mean, again, that's a really complicated thing. I am interested to see what happens in season 2 if we see a change in Danny at some point.
Jesse, what did you think of the Danny character and his complexities and this idea of taking your hero character and drenching him in a bit of monstrosity?
Yeah. What I love about what happens in this show is, where we leave off at the end of Karate Kid, this is kind of what we would expect for our hero to reap all the good things in life, as our villain is constantly living in squalor and having a rough life because he's just a shithead, and that's the way things should be. Well, when you look at Danny and he's got this great car, I think he's got a car salesman business. He's selling cars, and it's not just a freaking like trailer here, ladies and gentlemen. This is a huge corporation, lots of employees. Everywhere you turn, LaRusso's on the TV, karate chopping prices, and it's they did such great stuff with this show. But yeah, I think the point where I was like, man, he's really crossing the line. And they knew as showrunners what they were doing when Johnny's Pontiac got the shit beat out of it. I, at that point, had questions as to whether Ralph Macchio, I'm looking at the picture right here at the IMDb, as to whether Daniel had put them up to it. And, I had questions, even though most likely he didn't do it, because he's a good guy. He's got great intentions, but he can't let that thing go from back in the past. And here it has come back full force in his face to haunt him. So he's got to try and do something. But yeah, they do a great job of making you think that, okay, is this guy really that desperate to get Cobra Kai out of here, out of the community, to where he will do just about anything? And you said monstrosity, man. I tell you what, when the Pontiac went up in flames, he was a monster to me at that point. I was like, Daniel, how could you do this? But of course, we find out that that's not the case. Are we going to mention? I'm sure we'll get to the end of this. We haven't even talked about.
Go ahead and just take if you feel, and to you guys too. Don't wait for me to prompt you. If you feel the need to take the conversation in another direction, go.
No, I was just going to mention Johnny's son and how that was one of my favorite parts about this series, was the fact that they had all this like unresolved tension you knew was going to just combust at some point. And I wondered how Daniel would take after he found out that he was teaching Johnny's son karate. I didn't know if he would accept him or if he would say, okay, enough of this. And at that point, when that all came to a head and he kind of disavowed what was going on, right there, that kind of solidified Daniel to me, who he was, and then all this other shit that I had thought he could possibly be into. As underhanded as it seemed, there was no way I could still think of Danny as a villain in any way. But That's it. I'm done talking.
Terrific.
I'm quiet.
Pat, what did you think of Danny and all his complexities?
They did a very good job of underscoring the perceived bad guy acts of his with rations of morality where you could actually argue that, well, he was right in the entirety of it. When and to me the biggest one is when they have the hearing, when Johnny's trying to fight to get the Cobra Kai dojo recognized again to be able to compete in the All Valley, and Daniel is his biggest enemy, and he seems irrational and crazy during the hearing, and eventually gets overruled, and they allow Cobra Kai back in. Then you see Cobra Kai's actions during the tournament, and you're like, oh, well, Daniel was right the whole time because they're acting like a bunch of douchewads.
And that's the thing, you bring that up, but it's not like he told them to do any of that stuff. The only thing he instructed as far as, a cheat move or something or something bad guy-ish, something douche nozzleless, as you said, was he told Miguel to start with a crane kick as sort of as a dig at Danny, which was legal.
Ooh, yeah.
Which I thought was great, by the way. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, this is kind of one of the more interesting things I also thought was good. It's something they picked up on in the original movies and they brought through, was this whole idea of relationship between students and teachers, and I think that definitely influences Johnny's relationship with Miguel and Hawk, and Danny's relationship with Robbie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really when you come down to that, when you see a lot of where these guys take their actions from, or their motivations from, a lot of that, when they seem to take their better actions, that's when they're being motivated as teachers and not necessarily as just who are invested in their students and who are trying to bring them forward. Now, I think the thing with Cobra Kai and with Johnny, you're very much a prisoner of your own training and the environment you came up with. And, he wasn't saying, to Hawk, be a showboater, be this and that and anything directly. But, he was saying that, strike first, strike hard, no mercy. Anyone who's spent a lot of time in martial arts or in gyms or anything like that, you get the feel of what each place is like. And, the environment that you have in a certain place will give you that attitude and that behavior in your training going forward. If you've got a place that's really all business, then you'll be all business. If you've got a place where there's a lot of kind of machismo and bullshit, then you're going to get a lot of machismo and bullshit. And I think you can say that for the kind of environment that Johnny put together. And of course, he only knew what he was ever taught.
So you're saying that, well, you can't lay it at his feet that he was directly telling them to be cheaters and hit behind the back and everything else. It's implied in his teachings, again, strike first, strike hard, et cetera, et cetera. That's your argument.
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely it.
Okay, I don't disagree with that. But I think it has to be said, because he never outright says it. I don't want to use the word hide, but he can absolutely stand behind the thing. Like, hey, look, man, I taught these kids karate, same as every other dojo. I didn't teach them to cheat, and it goes back to what he said in the hearing. He was like, look, I haven't spoken to Kreese in decades. I think the man is dead, or the man's dead, or whatever. This is a new Cobra Kai. And again, at no point does he ever coach them to do any of that stuff. They took that upon themselves. But as you said, because it was implied that they should not act like sportsmen.
And I think there's a question to say, did he ever do anything to necessarily stop them either? Like, did he ever really jump down Hawk? Did he ever jump on Miguel? And I think on some level, I think Johnny, a big part of the end of his arc was kind of realizing whether or not where his intentions came from. He created monsters, yeah.
Yeah, he absolutely is standing there at the end of that series and going, what have I done? And then it's further hammered down when he's sitting there drinking in the back of the dojo and in walks Kreese. But that'll be for season 2. But we started talking about Danny, and I think Danny's arc, and this is where he truly rises at that hero level again. He's doing all of these dastardly things because he thinks he has to try to stop Johnny from promoting Cobra Kai, and it let's not be so dramatic. It doesn't cost him, but it definitely hurts his marriage. It hurts his relationships. It hurts him as a human being. And he sort of has to rise above that and say, there has to be another way to deal with this. It needs to be dealt with. I still believe Cobra Kai is wrong, but I have to find another way to fight this thing. And he does at the very end of the series by going back to Pat Morita's old house and saying this is going to be the home of Miyagi Dojo. I love that.
You know, what's funny is, you know, we are talking about this series between, and it's this great build up between these two guys from a movie from 30 some years ago, and I think what really hit home for me was when they were in front of that committee, and these guys, I mean, they live, breathe, and die that one moment from back in that tournament. But the committee had no fucking clue as to why they had banned Cobra Kai. They're like, what? It just goes to show you that this one moment meant so much to them. And Daniel's like, I can't let Cobra Kai back into the community. No one remembers. It wasn't that big of a deal. And it's so funny that they put that on screen. Like, no, what happened? Oh, yeah, they have to go back and find this dusty old binder to figure out why in the world they banned these guys for life.
Can I say my favorite part of that whole sequence was them talking about the colors of the mats?
Administrative details.
Well, but you know, we're talking about how Daniel kind of had to refocus himself by going back to Miyagi's house and speaking to Miyagi at his grave because of him feeling that he's not acting in character and the whole talk of balance. This all harkens back to the plot of Karate Kid 3, where Daniel's being manipulated by Terry Silver into turning into an aggressive, violent guy, and like he eventually just kind of at a certain point he snaps. He goes over that line and he punches a kid in the nose and breaks his nose at a dance club. And at that point he just has this breakdown about how he was wrong. He calls to try to get the kid's contact information to pay his hospital bill and just is sobbing to Miyagi about how he lost his way and all this stuff. And it doesn't get to that extreme in this, but he definitely loses himself and has to kind of recenter himself again. And I think it's very cool that they do that the way they did with him visiting Miyagi's grave and talking to him and hanging the same poster of Japanese writing that hung in Miyagi's deal. It was very, very cool. It was a cool nod to the original series and one that makes a lot of sense within the context.
Yeah, let's shift gears here. Let's talk about the kids. Let's focus on the main three. And I mean, we can talk a little bit about some of the side characters, but the three that we should be focusing on are obviously Miguel, Robbie, and Danny's daughter. I'm gonna grab her name in just a second. Sam. Okay. Let's talk about Miguel at first, because Miguel's a great character. He's this prototypical wimpy kid who is getting bullied and and wants to fight back, and it takes the 80s trope of the bullied kid who rises up and takes down the bullies and really turns it on his head, because at the end of it he becomes a monster. Mm-hmm. And he becomes everything that Johnny taught him to be and more, and it's horrifying. It's like it's so great because it's not like he becomes like necessarily like a bad kid. He wanted to learn karate to defend himself. He does. He beats the shit out of the other horrible bully. He at least for a moment in time gets the girl, and he wins the tournament, which is what he was trained to do. But he has this attitude now about him by the end of the series of somebody who is likely to mistreat others, and so you can see the complexity and the conflict in him starting to bubble up as well. I really enjoyed that about the Miguel characters, that they spent so long showing him, he's your hero, he's your hero, he's your hero. He's really not, though. But then he's not totally unlikable either. You know what I mean, Andrew?
Oh, exactly. I mean, I think, Miguel is kind of, like you said, he's cast as a hero throughout the whole thing. And I think, not for, by the time we get to the end of it, I'm not feeling so much, like I hate the character, but like I feel sorry for him because he's lost his way so badly. And I think, to go to one of the criticisms I have of the show is that it definitely relies on a bit of a comedy of errors sometimes, where if people had taken 5 minutes to talk about something, then maybe some of the conflicts wouldn't have popped up.
The old Three's Company motif.
Yeah, it's an old trope, but and they use it here maybe a little too often. But Miguel's kind of a character who, to use a phrase, has maybe just looked into the darkness a little too long. The darkness is starting to look back. He's gotten too much into his own head, and I'll perfectly admit, getting ready for me more often, more bell tests and stuff like that. Like, I start to definitely get myself into a certain headspace and maybe become a little bit more reactive to stuff, and he definitely went there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He got a lot really quickly in terms of his self-confidence when he finally had gotten himself to a point in his training that he could stand up for himself and beat the piss out of Kyler and his friends and stand up for Sam, and all of a sudden now he's got a girlfriend in Sam. He's getting a lot of attention and confidence, all of that at one time. And for however old he is, I don't know if he's supposed to be 15 or 16 or whatever, for a kid that age who's very low-key prior to that and all of a sudden has it, it's a lot to take on, and it's very easy to teeter that edge and go over.
Andrew, Jesse especially, can we just say that after the bit with Aisha at the snack table and then the movie sequence and all that happens after it with the bananas and everything, who wants to homeschool their children when they get to high school? Who's done with public school? Raise your hand. My God, what a horror show, right?
Man, I don't even know what things are going to be like when high school rolls around for my daughter, or when my son goes in near the end of middle school. In 5 years, things are going to change so much.
What a choice! What a choice for our girls, right? Be a whore, or be told, or have it be rumors you're a whore. Those are your choices.
Pick one.
I have to admit, one of my all-time favorite Johnny moments was when, I think it was Aisha was the Sam's friend, correct?
Yes.
She was explaining to the whole how everyone was making fun of her online behind anonymous names, and Johnny's response was, pussies.
Yeah.
If you make fun of somebody, you do it to their face. You tease them to your face. Honorably, respectfully. And it's just like, oh God, that whole thing has me terrified for my kids going to high school. And I fucking hated high school, which is one of the funny things about me watching this show, because like I have no connection to high school. I couldn't give a damn. And it's like, this is just, that was just horrible. And it gives all the characters, kind of maybe doing a quick pivot here to Sam, but I felt sorry for her for this whole thing because, like you said, what choices do the girls have at this point? Like, she's been, from what I understand of hierarchy in high schools, like, she got into the popular group, which is good for her, but she's still trying to be a good person, even though she's surrounded by one horrible character and one hanger-on her.
By the way, I did enjoy the fact that Moon falls in love with Hawk because now Hawk's a badass.
That was great.
That was
That's
perfect.
How it works, bro.
Thank you, Vince. Jesse, you were starting to say something?
I was just going to say, there was a moment about where Sam, and you guys just tell me if you saw this as well as I did. Right there in the lunchroom when she was confronting Kyler, and I think he was like spreading rumors about how she was giving blowjobs or whatever, and it was right before Miguel stepped up. You see her change her stance for just a quick second. I don't know if any of you guys noticed this or not, but I looked at my wife and I said she was getting ready to kick his ass. It was going to happen right there in front of us. And then Miguel popped right in. She didn't forget anything that her father taught her, and she was about to smack or kick that fucking smile off his face. I love that. That was probably my one moment of Sam that I really, really enjoyed. But going back to Miguel, just real quick, you know, the aspect that I liked the most was his relationship with Johnny and how he was changing Johnny just like Johnny was, you know, teaching him. They needed each other, and you could tell that. I think it was at the end of episode 1 when Johnny says, you know, I'm going to teach you and your the skills that your pansy ass generation needs in order to make it out there. And that right there, you knew you were going to be going on an adventure with these two. I didn't realize that with Miguel, you know, you're going to be rooting for him at the beginning, and then you're going to be like, whoa, what was I doing at the end?
Yeah.
Should I have been rooting for this guy? And
No,
that
I was still rooting for him at the end.
Well, of course you would, Pat.
Yeah, while he's humanizing Johnny, Johnny is corrupting him, and by the end of it, they've almost switched places.
Yeah.
But you know, that's grist for the mill for season 2, which I'm now very excited for as far as that character goes. Let's shift gears a little bit, and again, I just want to say one more time how they did a great job of scaring the fuck out of me for when my kids are finally in high school.
Yeah, buddy.
Apparently, it's a terrible place. It's far worse than I remember. It's far worse than it was when I was a kid. Because at least, and I've said this a zillion times before, but I'm going to keep saying it. At least when I went to high school, when the day was done, I could go home and get away from whatever it was that was bugging me in high school. You know, the bullies went their way, I went mine, and we very rarely ran into each other in the street. And now and now because of cell phones and the internet, the bullies can follow you to your bedroom.
Yeah, there's going to be a gif of your ass crack at some point. I guarantee it. So it's just getting all them high school kids ready out there. It's going to be bad.
That's
okay.
I gotta hit one more thing on Miguel here, just in relation to the whole high school experience. I think they missed an opportunity here to do something where after that big throwdown with, what was his name, Kyler?
Yeah, Kyler.
Yeah. Named for a kid that. Anyway, moving on. That whole throwdown in there, it's like I was waiting for him to then be suspended and then get Johnny's rant on, it was 4-on-1 and you're the one who got suspended?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about that all online, where if this was real life, he'd have been expelled from that school.
Absolutely.
Pat,
I think.
Go ahead, Andrew, and then Pat.
I think that's one thing where, I mean, you know, me growing up, I got picked on quite a bit, and I think I was one of those kids who was like, you know, I want to fight back, but I don't want to get in trouble, and I think stuff like, you know, zero tolerance on this sort of thing is just making that worse.
I know for a fact that there was at least 1 or 2 fights that I got into. Actually, I'll tell this story real quick. This was a gym class, and we were playing baseball. And now, again, I'm not the world's greatest baseball player, and I certainly didn't watch baseball on TV. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew that if the play was at home plate, you could ram the catcher, and take the base. I don't think I'm wrong about that, right? I've seen plenty of guys like crash into the catcher. Pat, am I right or wrong about that?
Correct.
All right, cool. So I thought that at the time, and whether or not this was the correct time to do it, I didn't care. I just hated the kid who was playing catcher. I hated everybody in that class, and I was going to fuck him up. So I ran full speed into him. Now, mind you, I had been like moshing for years at this point, and wrestling, and I think I was kind of a Mick Foley type. I as Ric Flair would say, take a drink, everybody. I was kind of the stunt man of a wrestler, and I decided to run home. And I don't know if I was out or whatever, but I didn't stop running. I hit this kid like a full-on fucking train and knocked him into the back fence. And everyone's like stunned silence. And my gym teacher goes, "How about you just go have a seat on the bench for the rest of the game?"
You're a little too aggressive there, Mark Radulich. Way to go.
Yeah, fuck Craig Fi Chandler and everyone that looks like him. Anyway, Pat, you were gonna say.
Wow, now I'm gonna have a hard time following. So again, Mark, Jesse, you guys are a little bit older than me. So when I was still in school, like the latter stages of junior high school, is when kind of everybody had started to get America Online and messaging and things of that nature. So you could put out like chain letters in your emails and stuff to like the class and whatever. And there were one or two times I saw like, one kid get singled out by one kid in an email that was a mass email, and other kids kind of jumped on the bandwagon. That type of thing was not uncommon. However, as it relates to the 4-on-1 cafeteria fight, I will tell you this. When I was a young tyke in the 5th grade, I had gotten into a fight with a 6th grader, and it was a straight-up fight that he initiated, and I ended up making him look bad in front of his friends. So the following day, it turned into a 4-on-1 fight with me against 4 6th graders. And I got concussed. Now, despite the fact that it was a 4-on-1 fight, because, it was like the end of a Raw where all the other baby faces went home, and I was just in there done getting worked over.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it was pretty much like that. So even though I was clearly concussed, could barely walk a straight line, and had, a lot of markings all over my head that would indicate where someone's sneaker had hit me or, whatever, I still got questioned as to what I did wrong to initiate that.
Wow.
Now I did not face a suspension or anything, and the other 4 who initiated the fight, they got, their paid vacations or what have you that you want to recognize a suspension as. And I didn't, but had I not been marked the hell up and beaten up pretty good, I probably would have gotten suspended too myself. That's how schools work. And that happened, this is literally 20 years ago that happened. Schools the way they are today, you're looking at expulsions for everybody involved.
Yep.
Unless you hit a teacher. Unless you're in an elementary school, you have an IEP, and you hit a teacher. True story.
Okay,
Yep.
Especially, though, for high school-aged people in a public school setting, the public schools don't want that going on. Y'all are gone. You go to the private school now where you got to pay to have money, and they have their own people who handle that internally. And I can tell you that from going to both public and Catholic high school. In Catholic high school, the tolerance policy on altercations was 0. And no matter what you did, if you were involved in this type of policy, you didn't start it, whatever. If you were involved, you were gone. Because there was a fight my sophomore year between 2 guys who had gone through freshman year at the Catholic school. Everybody knew who they were normal, whatever. They got into a little thing in the hallway. They were both gone as of the next day.
Yeah, I would say when you're in elementary school, you can pretty much get away with murder. Literally get away with murder. When you get to high school, things change a little bit. Anything else on Miguel here before we switch over to Robbie?
I'm good.
I think Miguel is completely understandable. And while he may have gone a bit extreme, I don't think inherently he's wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Let's talk about Robbie. First of all, Pat, doesn't he look like the one friend from Boy Meets World? I swear to God, I thought that was him.
So you thought Robbie was Sean Hunter in a time machine.
Yes. I'm telling you, I almost had to IMDb him, and I'm like, no, that can't possibly be him. That show was like 20 years ago.
No, that's the dance captain from Fuller House.
That's who that was. I knew he looked familiar.
Yeah,
Okay.
that won't let what's her Ramona onto the dance team.
Right, okay. I knew he looked familiar, but yeah, he definitely looked like the one kid from Boy Meets World.
There is some Ryder Strong resemblance.
Anywho, look, none of the characters I think are written badly, though I think his arc was a little rushed. It's probably my one.
I agree.
It's probably my one criticism of this. A couple of things about him that, for the kind of character they wrote him as, where he's sort of this derelict dropout. Look, I work at a jail and I meet a lot of high school dropouts. They're not as clean as him. This kid dropped out of Disney high school. Okay, he was so clean cut and his hair was so nice. Holy shit! He's a little too good looking for the way they wrote him. They needed to dirty him up a bit. But so there's that. But I think he goes from I hate you to maybe let's make amends to you've hurt my feelings to I'm going to get you back to I'm going to learn karate to I'm going to be in a tournament. Now, I granted there weren't that many episodes of this thing, and they're only 30 minutes, and he was not the most important character. But am I wrong, Andrew, in saying a bit rushed?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty fair. I mean, he's definitely one of the more, kind of rote characters, and I mean, I think was it Ryder Strong, whatever that character's name was, like he was basically pulled right out of that playbook for his TV arc and stuff like that. I mean, I think his overall arc works, but you're right. It's rushed. I do like the character as we get to know him a bit more, but I mean, kind of, dropout, angry at his dad is kind of this really broad thing, and I think you get a little bit more insight into him once you're introduced to his mom, you get the idea of what his actual home life is like, and things like that. And I mean, I think we're going to be definitely spending a lot more time with him in season 2, which I am actually looking forward to because I like where the character ended up, and I think there's a lot of interesting places for that character to go.
Jesse, were you rooting for him to win the tournament, and were you surprised that he didn't?
Here's the thing. I did not like this kid from the get-go.
Oh, no.
I couldn't stand... I know he was necessary for the ending, which was great because, you had that, that tension between it's him, his dad's on the opposite side, and oh my gosh, here comes Daniel LaRusso to be in his corner as well. But was I rooting for him to win? No, I did not like this kid. He always showed up just when I forgot about him and ruined shit. I think, there was a point where I think Sam was grounded and, she's having her issues with her mom. And then knock, knock, knock. Oh, look, here it is, Robbie. I'm like, oh, damn it. There were notes I was making as the latter part of the season went on. And there was a couple times I was like, Robbie, damn it. I forgot about this kid. So, yeah, I just didn't like him. The point that you made about it, his arc being rushed, is very that's true because he started out. There's no way this kid makes that quick of a turnaround. There's just no way. You don't go from hating your dad for how many years? We're going on 16, or I can't remember if they even said when Johnny left. But you do not go from hating your dad to the situation that you're in, and then, oh, okay, well, you know what? I guess that just gives Daniel's character that much more credibility, the fact that he could possibly turn this shithead around and give him the modicum of respect that this kid needs to have. It's good that he's not on this criminal path anymore. But
now I gotta know, who did you hate worse, him or Kyler? Or the son. Those are your three. Okay. Yeah, hang on. Here's what we're gonna do. Okay, we're gonna play a quick game of what is it? Fuck, marry, kill with Kyler.
Oh, dude, I don't want to play this game.
No, I'm kidding.
I do not want to play that game.
But I mean, like, of those three, of the son, Kyler, and Robbie, who did you hate the worst?
I would go with definitely the son. Anthony's just he is
terrible.
A spoiled little brat, and he's just about everybody I hated when I was a kid. So I can't stand as an adult. So I'm definitely going with Anthony here. But yeah, Robbie's probably a close second. So
Oof! Wow. Shots fired from the Starcher household. Pat, what do you have anything else on Robbie?
I know that the goal is to try to have a redemption arc with Robbie, more so than anyone else. But
you know what I hope? I hope Kreese gets a hold of his ass in the second season. That's what I want to see. I want to see Kreese get a hold of Robbie.
But here's the thing. Robbie never really ever stops being just inherently dishonest, even if it seems for good reason. And the only part of Robbie I will justify is his anger towards his father, which I get. Like, you've never been there. This kid's like 16 or 17 years old. Now all of a sudden you want to play dad, but you're also playing dad to this other kid that he sees it with. Like, no, I'm not having anything to do with you. Screw you. I get it. That's valid. But manipulating the LaRusso family and doing everything, even when he got into a fight with his old gang, he just has no loyalty to anybody, really. Because he's not loyal to them. He's not loyal to the LaRussos for doing what he did. He has no familial bond. So screw Robbie. Like, he just keeps turning on everybody. Like Kurt Hennig.
Take a drink, everyone. That does bring up an interesting question. Do you think the writers screwed up his character at all? Do you think they did not write him as strong as they could for what the purposes of having him in the series were? I'll let anyone answer that.
100%.
Okay.
I think they did, but I think when you look at, and Pat, you got a perfectly valid point about him not having any loyalty, but when you look at where he's been, his dad's more or less abandoned him. His mom's there, but she's, working her way down the phone book every time she goes to the bar. So he doesn't really have anyone to say, oh, what does loyalty actually look like?
Yeah.
I mean, the moment he says anything against his friends, they automatically threaten him.
Right. Let's turn our attention to Samantha LaRusso, played by Mary Mouser. I wanted to hate this character. Because she's initially kind of portrayed as, one of the clueless friends, one of the rich bitches. But, and she's with Kyler, and then she's kind of with Miguel, and, she's just all over the place. And by the end of the series, I don't have strong feelings for her either way. I didn't think she was a badly written character. I thought, if one could go as far as saying that both Robbie and Miguel are kind of caricatures, I think she's the most realistically drawn teenager in the show. Where, we talked about Shades of Grey with both Johnny and Daniel. I think she also comes across as Shades of Grey, where she's just trying to be a student in the school and go through life, and and look, girls like boys, girls like girls too. Let's not be let's not be haters. But I mean, they want to date, and they want to and they want to go to college, and they want to do all these things, and that's all she is. She's just trying to be an average girl and not be involved in all of this other drama, and yet it finds its way to her, and she's just trying to deal with it as best she can. As far as like a personality type, I didn't, even when she gets punished, I felt like I was gonna hate everything, like her reactions to it. And it's like, no, she reacted like a normal girl. I'm okay with this. It was weird. Like I like everything about her made me think that this was gonna be a terrible character, and she's probably the least terrible of the main set. You know what I mean, Andrew?
No, for sure. And I think I mentioned this earlier, and I mean, I always thought of Sam as kind of one of the characters I always felt kind of the most sorry for, because at the same time where she is, I think it's an inherently good character. She's also a bit on the naive side, and she learns some lessons as she goes. I mean, she finds out her group of friends are horrible. She finds out the guy she likes is an asshole. And, you know, she kind of just keeps on, you know, she trusts people that kind of turn on her. And, I mean, to the credit of her character, she doesn't necessarily turn on them either. She doesn't necessarily let that change her. What she does is try and again find her own person, not necessarily let her be defined by these other people who may or may not be in her life.
You know, she's referred to as the peacekeeper in the episode where Danny's mom shows up, and I thought that was probably the strongest part of her character, part of her personality, is that she can see the good and bad in all of these different entities, and she is trying to find a place of civility between them all. Pat, what did you think of Samantha LaRusso?
Okay, first of all, I'm glad you brought up Grandma LaRusso. She is the worst, most awful character in the initial movie. By far. She is fucking terrible and annoying and horrible. Hey,
I wonder if
everything's great. What's wrong? You just took karate. Oh, we're great here. Look, yeah. Oh, I'm gonna drive you on your date and be annoying. It's like Linda from Bob's Burgers if she was a real person and more overbearing than what she is.
So just as an aside, my wife and I have determined that we are variants of Linda and Peter from Family Guy. Like, she's Linda from Bob's Burgers, and I'm Peter from Family Guy. Just thought I'd share that. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, to see her depicted in such a villainized way by the current writers makes me realize I'm not the only one who hated this overbearing bitch, and I'm so glad she's being depicted as such.
Terrific.
That aside, Sam. Sam, to me, is one of the better written characters in the story, in that she's much more realistic than you would probably get anywhere else. She is a girl who's a young, pretty girl from a good family, has money, all this stuff, you know, well-to-do, gets in with a popular clique for whatever reason, starts being influenced to date the guys that she thinks she's supposed to date by her friends. You know that whole deal. But because she's had a decent upbringing, at least in some level, she is regressing and fighting against that time to time, tries to stay friends with the people that they don't want her to be friends with, and is being pulled in two directions. And if that's not like a good kid in high school who also happens to be good looking, I don't know what is, because that's what happens. You get pulled in these directions by people who you think are your friends on one side and who you know are your friends on one side, and it's very conflicting. So her arc as a whole is very, very well done in terms of both realism and how it's acted out. I give her a lot of credit for making me invested in that character. And there's points where they write her a little dumb, like at no point does she ever really say to Miguel, hey, I can't, you know, see you because you're doing this whole Cobra Kai deal, and my dad has had dealings with them in the past, and unfortunately, till you give that up, I can't see you, or what have you. Instead, she kind of allows him to believe that something's going on between her and Robbie, which is not really fair to Miguel, and I think kind of underscores, again, Miguel's not really a bad guy. He's feeling what we're all feeling without knowing the context.
Yeah, that's fair. Jesse.
Yo.
Your thoughts?
My thoughts on Sam.
So,
yes.
Have you not been on a podcast with me before, sir?
You just say my name, and I have no idea what you're talking about. No, I understand. Sam. Let's talk about Sam real quick. Sam probably... she kind of walked the line for me. Sometimes she just kind of felt like she was there, and then some other times it was like I could completely see if you were going to write somebody as Daniel LaRusso's daughter, I had no problem believing that was who she was. She seemed to have a great set of values, and yeah, I see a lot of her. A lot of what she portrays is what I see my own 13-year-old daughter kind of going through. You know, the whole clique situation, all that stuff. I would say that she probably gets one of my top moments in this whole series when Johnny finds out that she is Daniel's daughter.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was so great.
She was the one. She kind of haunts Johnny throughout this whole series.
Yeah. Yeah, and when he sees her in the back of that car and then puts two and two together when he's at LaRusso Motors and she's standing there giving her dad a hug, oh man, I was like, this is going – I think that probably sealed the deal as to me going, okay, this series has got some potential. Because,
well, and then when he finally finds out Miguel is dating her, he goes, "You're dating a LaRusso?"
Oh, man.
That was great.
I can't escape these fucking people.
Even though I may not have really enjoyed her much as a character, although I think she probably has a lot more depth, and we'll see that in season 2. She had some pretty great moments throughout this, or part of some of the great moments throughout this series.
Okay, we're going to start shifting into ending the discussion, but there's a couple of things I want to hit real quick and get people's opinions on. Specifically, just whatever I'm going to kick it to you guys. Whatever your favorite sequence or scene is in this series. I mean, 30 minutes episodes. I think there was only 8 or what was it, 8 or 10 of them. It was 10. 10 30-minute episodes. So these are pretty short. But I know there's one standout moment from me that I really liked and I thought really summed up the series well. In what it was trying to get across. That there ain't no good guys, there ain't no bad guys, there's just you and me and, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go around the table. Favorite sequences or scenes. Mine was the bit in the bar with Danny and Johnny. And they're sharing stories and they're connecting. And, of course, it'll all be undone moments later. But they have that moment in the bar, and it gets summed up with my favorite line in the whole series, which is, "What's Facebook?"
Yes. Oh, Johnny is so great in that aspect that they said he's a analog man in a digital world.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Oh, so good.
Absolutely.
And I love the discussion of Allie, where it's like, what do you mean, you haven't friend requested her? Well, no, I'm not going to friend request her. She, I'm married. I'm happily married. And then, but she hasn't friend requested me either.
Hey,
it's like we all, I would be stunned, and if we're not in that situation, then more power to you. Where if you haven't just looked up your old high school flame on Facebook to find out what they're doing. So mine, of course, is married with child.
Dude,
the one that got
nothing.
away.
I don't friend request the girls I work with. Okay. I they request me. I don't friend request anybody outside of having something to do with this podcast or whatever for that reason, because I don't want to come across as creepy
stalker guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to real quick. I know we're going to go around the horn here in a second, but Pat, what'd you think of the soundtrack?
Well balanced. I love the inclusion of songs like "Nothing But a Good Time." Even beyond, the Daniel and Johnny sing-along to REO Speedwagon was awesome. But, it's well-balanced of updating it with modern stuff and going back to the 80s classics that, Johnny and Daniel are the ones who are going to listen to. It was really not overly pitched one way or another, and I think that was really skillful that they did that way.
Andrew, you got an opinion on the soundtrack?
I'm not that big of a fan of 80s music or 80s metal in general, so I'm going to say it worked for the series.
All right. How about you, Mark?
Loved it, especially opening up with this schlum, who's running around town as a handyman, just making his way in the world today. It takes everything you got, right, Pat? And it's set to "Nothing But a Good Time." It's perfect.
Oh man. All right, sorry, I derailed it for a second. Go ahead. Who you shooting it to?
Somebody jump up and tell me what your favorite scene or sequence was.
I will go. I think my favorite of the whole series, and it never made me want to watch the next episode more than anything else, was when Johnny had decided to go over to LaRusso's house and put an end to this bullshit. And I was like, oh my gosh, we've got to watch this next episode. I didn't care if we had some kind of appointment coming up. You know, I don't know if you guys would watch the previews of the next episode, but you know, when you saw Johnny standing outside and Danny looks up and sees him standing out there across from his pool.
Like fucking Brendan Fraser from With Honors.
Oh, dude. I was jazzed. I mean, this series had me so excited from episode to episode, but I would say that moment right there and me getting ready and all excited as to what was going to happen next really cemented this as one of the top series of this year.
Okay, my favorite sequence happens very early. It's the initial Johnny beats up Kyler and his goons outside of the mini mart, because it establishes that, you know, like he throws the scissor kick and he immediately like pulls his groin.
Yeah.
And he's like,
that would be me.
And it reinforced a lot of his initial character in that he's not a good guy. He really doesn't interfere at any point until they mess with his car. He doesn't care that they're dumping the Pepto on Miguel. It's just annoying that they're loud while he's just trying to eat his garbage pizza in peace. And then they get him on the car, and then he's pissed off.
By the way, haven't we all been there before where we go into a gas station and the guy grabs your food, he's like, "You're gonna wear a glove or something?" And he just stares at you. I was like, "Oh boy, well, I sympathize."
Yeah.
So yeah, like he's doing, you know, we get that scene. And he just opens up a can of whoop ass on all these you know, young punks. He takes a lick here or there because he's older, he's slower, he's not training, he's, you know, not stretching or anything. But he gets the job done, and it's like, wow, his karate's still valid. He can still do things, even though he's, you know, a derelict or what have you. But there's hope here because he can still do that. He had a bad day, you got to take it out on somebody. I want to see where this goes, and I like how it was portrayed.
All right, Andrew, take us home.
All right, I got to go with first one, just the quick favorite moment. I got to go back to I Could Eat. This is that whole sequence of they're staring down, they're getting ready to go, and then Danny's wife comes out and basically talks sense into them, and then, yeah, I Could Eat. That was funny. One aspect I did like about this, because of my background, is I did really enjoy all the karate stuff and the actual training and things like that. And I think they rode this very fine line of you know, Johnny definitely being a little bit of a man at a time. And I think they probably could have mined that for a little bit more if you're even remotely familiar with what modern karate looks like these days in terms of a lot of the tournaments and stuff like that. Like, I wanted him to show up, and I wanted all the kids to be wearing headgear and gloves and everything. He's like, "What the fuck is this?"
Season two.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, a quick bit of hate towards the original Karate Kid for always, you know, breaking the hearts of millions of kids who went to their first karate tournament. And it's like, what do you mean? There's no one ring and a giant arena cheering me?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know if you guys all had that experience. I definitely did, along with the headgear and the fake boxing gloves and the shin pads and the catcher's body protector, which is essentially what a Taekwondo body protector is. It's really deflating, but it can also be motivating to be like, this is bullshit, I want to whip some ass now, and just make you man enough to go ahead and do that, which is how I won the American Taekwondo Association Mid-Atlantic Championships in 1995 in every damn category with a broken freaking thumb.
Nice.
Well done. Well done, Pat Angle.
One additional thing I wanted to talk about was, again, kind of talking about the Cobra Kai training. And, again, I mean, credit to William Zabka and the writers for just playing this right level of him being man out of time and him not also turning into a parody. Because right now, if you guys are interested at all, or if you want a quick laugh, go look up Master Ken on YouTube. He's a YouTube personality that runs a bunch of kind of 2-minute videos that is basically very accurately lampooning what a really bad, you know, hard as nails, no bullshit Sensei is like. And literally his entire, one of his video series is literally, this art is bullshit. And also 100 ways to strike a man in the groin. That's the other great Master Ken classic.
All right, I immediately like Master Ken, but let's be real. Johnny Lawrence is basically me.
Yeah,
I certainly won't argue with Pat Mullen.
No, I knew from you were really the first person to be like, the Cobra Kai is just the greatest show ever, and my first thought to me is like, yeah, because you totally identify with Johnny. I'm like, there was no question about that. All right, so two things I want from everybody. I gave a structure to how we were going to go about this. I didn't want to go episode by episode. I wanted to talk about characters and themes. But if you feel like there's anything left unsaid, if you had a burning desire coming into this that we never got to, now's the time. We're going to round robin. But I also want to hear predictions for next season. Well, Andrew, Jesse, Pat, who wants to go first?
I'll go. So, all right. I want to say that there were a lot of elements to this series that really made me a fan. After, first off, let's just talk about YouTube Red being smart enough. YouTube Red, I'll pronounce that a little bit better. YouTube Red being smart enough to release the first 2 episodes for completely free on their service, and then to get you to sign up for that extra bit of 8 episodes. And the first 2 episodes were fantastic. I mean, they were great. So they did their job. They absolutely did their job. To the point where I watched the first 2 episodes one night, and I was like, I've got to stop here and get the family involved. So a lot of, I could tell that it was going to be a good series. You wanted to see these kids come to this old, out of time man and learn karate, the hard-nosed karate that he was taught, and become we've all been through martial arts, or at least some type of training, that, and we understand the discipline that it brings, and also the kind of great feeling that you have after completing something that you've been doing, whether it be getting that next belt or defeating that opponent. It had me hooked. It really did. There are so many moments throughout here. I remember one iconic scene where I think it's in the first, or I think it's in the second episode, where Johnny gets out of his car and he's getting ready to go pick up his Pontiac from LaRusso Motors and get it towed to another shop. And as he gets out of the car, there's just this looming sign that says LaRusso above his head. And that kind of shows you in one scene what this guy's life has been like up to this point. It's been nothing but LaRusso. And from that point in Karate Kid in his life, things have gone downhill. Are we going to see a redemption? I don't know. I didn't know what I was getting into when I saw those first 2 episodes, but I knew I had to watch more. So, just my final thoughts altogether, man, I loved it. Now, as for the second season, what are we going to get? Well, we saw our cliffhanger there with Kreese walking through the door. Thought to be dead, but no, back from the dead, here he comes. And, man, I think a lot of – I don't know if the second season is going to stand up to this first season or not, just because I wonder which way they can go. Bringing Kreese back into it, yeah, great, all right. We have that old familiarity. I hope to see – I wouldn't see why not Elizabeth Shue? Show up. Just make one episode. That's all I want next season.
She's currently having dinner with one of the Olsen twins.
Okay, all right. So that
Thank you,
Pat. Pretty much means no, it's not happening. Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're going to see Johnny and Johnny's son Robbie will. That whole thing's going to come to a head there, and how Johnny's going to react to Kreese coming back into his life. Whew. I mean, I I don't know if Johnny's just going to be like first episode straight out the box, like go up and try to kill Kreese for all the shit that he's put him through, or at least we saw what happened in Karate Kid and how this guy had acted. So I don't know, man. I look forward to it. I know I'm excited for season 2, and it's got to get here soon.
All right, Pat. Any burning desires and predictions for season 2?
As far as predictions, here's what I could see happening. Because technically, ownership of Cobra Kai, that to me, I don't know why that wouldn't belong to John Kreese. Or in the least, Terry Silver, who had signed that over to John Kreese. So how could Johnny technically open and operate a Cobra Kai dojo? So I can easily see the season opening with John Kreese offering Johnny to keep his spot under Kreese, as long as Kreese is the one making sure that they're teaching karate this way. And Johnny kind of having, obviously, a moral dilemma with it because this guy tried to kill him for coming in second place in a karate tournament in 1984. And I could see it developing to where Johnny and Daniel kind of have to team up with their brand of shared karate against John Kreese and his karate. I could easily see Robbie once again turning on somebody and joining up with John Kreese's karate, because Daniel's karate wasn't enough to make him a winner, and he didn't even stand with him until the last fight, and he still wants nothing to do with his dad, so he's going to go with John Kreese to be a winner and find purpose. Miguel, I could see defecting to John Kreese's karate, and if he doesn't immediately, Hawk is definitely going there. And we have this bout where Sam is going to have to be the one to step up and take the honor of Miyagi-Do karate going forward into the next tournament.
As far as predictions go, I completely agree with the show's going to come down to Sam standing up for Miyagi-Do Dojo, and I see her winning the next tournament and sort of being the true hero of the series. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on the rivalry between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do. I think the next season's going to also focus thematically on father figures. It started to in this one. They definitely dipped their toe in, but there was other stuff going on. I think with Kreese being a father figure to Billy, and and then Billy being Johnny being a father figure to Miguel, and then Danny being a father figure to Robbie, and all of that. I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see the theme of fatherhood really get played through in the second season. But yeah, I think a lot of it's going to come down to this girl having a big push and pull with karate in and of itself, and and maybe she's tempted to go with Kreese or Cobra Kai because she wants to be her own person and not, as we learned in Rocky V, she doesn't want to be the puppet of the bigger star and all of that. It's still one of the funniest things I remember out of Rocky V. So those are some of my thoughts there. Andrew, take us home here. Burning desires and predictions.
I think I'm pretty good for burning desires. I got to go with. I think both of you guys are just on the right track. I mean, season 2 is going to be a battle for the soul of Cobra Kai. You know what? I kind of like your idea with Sam. I'm gonna bring one up and actually say, let's have her fight Aisha in the final, and maybe that's the. That's also maybe the path towards reconciliation on some way. Further to that, I'm just going to be a shit disturber and say, hey, why don't we just have Hilary Swank show up and box up both Johnny and Danny?
No.
Yeah, let's get Jaden Smith in there, Hilary Swank. Let's get the Asian guy to kick the shit out of him in the second Karate Kid. Let's have a reunion.
And we're going to bring back anybody. We bring back Terry Silver.
All right.
I am also going to bring up as much hate as Will Smith has gotten for the remake. He was actually an executive producer on this, so we'll call this at least a step towards redemption.
Yeah, they couldn't do it without him. He had to give his permission. That's how he got that credit.
Oh, boy. Hey, how about Bert? Is it Bert? The glasses kid? Has anybody talked about Glasses Kid maybe winning a competition or something? No. All right.
Good call, Jess. All right. I think that brings us to the end here. Now, who's up for a commentary over the original Karate Kid, huh? Anyone up for that?
Oh, man, yes.
I would love to.
Andrew?
I could probably roll with that. I'm just not sure when.
Yeah, that's fine.
I would also be very up for a Karate Kid Part 3 version of that.
I played around with the idea of contacting Sean and actually doing like a Long Road to Ruin for the original Karate Kid trilogy, but
yeah, but then that has to involve Sean. So
all right then. Moving on. So yeah, I think a commentary for both Karate Kid 1 and 3 is, we can try to order those up and get those on the schedule when everyone's free. That's fine. All right. In the meantime, let's get to plugs. Andrew, what are we plugging these days? Where are we working out?
I'm currently training at Esteem Martial Arts in Havoc JKD in Calgary. That is under the amazing, always inspiring Jay Cooper and Sifu Jay Cooper and Sarah Jade Folk. That's part of the JKD Jeet Kune Do Athletic Association under Harinder Singh Sabharwal. You can go to look them up. You can find both those organizations on Facebook if you're looking for any local affiliates or anything like that.
Andrew, always a pleasure. You and I have a show to do later in the year on Veterans Day. And eventually we got to do The Crown Season 2 before Season 3 comes out.
Yes, we do.
We've got some stuff to do. I still have to convince you to do at least the first season of Frontier. Where I can fit it into the schedule, I have no fucking clue. But these are things that I wanted to talk about with you. So,
right.
and any time
I'll see if I can.
Go ahead.
I was about to say, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you and I have to get together and figure out when we can do these things.
No, for sure. Let me go watch an episode of Frontier for what has also been told to me as a ultra-violent Canadian Heritage Minute.
Terrific. See? You just keep selling me on it, you tease. And then
I haven't watched it yet. This is what a friend of mine at work told me. So I'm that description has me at least intrigued. And if you haven't watched any Canadian Heritage Minutes, I will be posting them on Sean Comer's Facebook page at some point or another.
Nice. Well done. All right. Andrew Graham, always a pleasure. Tell your wife I said hello. She, of course, will have to come back when we do The Crown as well. By the way, you all should friend my wife on Facebook, and I'll tell you why. My wife has been watching The Crown, Reign, Downton Abbey. If it's got Brits in it, she's watching it. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean, Andrew? You guys could all, she got up early in the morning to watch the royal. Did you watch the wedding, by the way? Did you get up too?
Only saw clips of it.
Okay. Yeah, my wife went on a rant. Jesse got to hear it about all the stuff that they said about the woman and the cake and the dress and all this other shit.
Did you tell her that as of July 4th, 1776, we don't have to give a damn about British weddings?
She didn't get the memo, as it were. All right. Again, thank you.
Especially when it's sixth in the line.
Yeah. Thanks again, Andrew. Pat Mullen, do your thing, pal.
So you can normally hear me on Sunday nights on the 411 Ground and Pound radio show tomorrow. Excuse me, not tomorrow, on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with Robert Winfrey. It's a blast. I try to make the best of bad situations when it comes to MMA cards. That's basically what being an MMA follower is these days, unfortunately.
Listen, Pat, nobody gives a shit. What everyone wants to know is when are the casual heroes coming back?
So that's literally 100% at this point on Chris and Gavin. Chris has allegedly finished the studio, and we should be fine. But and allegedly we have contacts and shows set up and sponsors. Everything should be fine. Yet we've still produced no content at this point in time.
You are like the dragons in Game of Thrones. You know that joke in South Park where it's like, someday maybe we think in a few seasons the dragons are coming. That's what I think about when I think about the casual heroes now. Someday maybe we think there's going to be a show.
That's basically where we're at, yes.
All right. Anything else about... I cut you off rudely. Anything else you want to say about your appearances on the 411 Ground and Pound radio show?
I mean, I was going to plug our little TV party watch-along that we just did, but now I'm not going to.
Oh, I've hurt your feelings.
Just a little.
Sweep the leg, Johnny. All right. Yes, Pat and I absolutely did a... okay, look. Pat and I absolutely did a watch-along that was Pat's suggestion. I told Pat, anytime, anywhere, as long as I'm not unconscious or at work, hit me up, and we'll do some wrestling watch-alongs. And, Pat, what'd you pitch me the other night?
A very, very young David Fit Finley versus an unfortunate fella named the Black Prince.
Unfortunate. I can only imagine what happens.
If you watch along, you'll find out why we call him an unfortunate fella.
Oh boy!
You're gonna find the video and put it up on YouTube there, Jesse, with our commentary.
You damn straight. Damn straight. You guys hook me up with a link, and I'll put that shit together.
Just copy and paste the title out of the thing, and you'll find it.
All right.
All right. I'm gonna do my plugs, and then I'm gonna let Jesse do the go home plugs. All right, so this week we've been focusing on the X-Men and Deadpool in particular. We reviewed on source material Deadpool versus X-Force. Robert Winfrey and I had a civil discussion, believe it or not, on Deadpool 2 for Daniel Hollywood. Myself and you bastard. Myself and Jesse reviewed the new Five-Finger Death Punch, and I'm pretty sure we made no fans on that show. None.
Negative one fan.
Negative 10 dislikes. We're pretty sure Ivan Moody's going to figure out where we live here in Lanford, Ohio, and beat the shit out of both of us.
Exactly.
Did you say Lanford, Ohio?
I did. It's a joke.
Same reaction I had last night. Just roll with it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roseanne.
Yep. You're welcome. It's just an ongoing gag. Anywho, and then Pat's aforementioned watch along we did this show tonight, and tomorrow we actually had a little show in the can. We're finally going to release it because it goes along with the X-Men. We did a source material extra. It's a watch along as myself, Robert Winfrey, Ronnie Adams, and Jesse Starcher did a commentary for the X-Men 4-player video game. That was in the arcades.
You bastards called me for that one.
It was an impromptu thing, sorry. We'll get you on the next one, promise.
It was one of those things where we finished the Simpsons one, and Mark's like, "Oh, we got this other one here." Yeah. All right, let's go.
That was Winfrey pushing that. And Jesse, you're absolutely right. The end where we won't let you do plugs is the funniest part of that entire thing.
Motherfuckers.
Kind of like this.
It kind of. Well, don't be mean. All right. So that's it. That's everything that's fit to print here on the Religion Broadcasting Network. Next week it's all Star Wars all the time. We might have a little. I'm going to talk to Jesse. We might do a little something extra. I had an idea on the way home today for a video game watch along that goes along with Star Wars. So maybe we'll throw up a little extra content. We've got the Han Solo comic book. We've got the Solo Damn You Hollywood review. And then on Wednesday, to go along with all of that, we're going to review the new Galactic Empire 2. And then like I said, there might be a little bit of extra content for you right here on the Rattleton Broadcasting Network. Jesse Starcher, do your thing and take us home.
Quiet! Ladies and gentlemen, go give the Rattleton Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great content that we have to offer. We do all sorts of stuff, as you just heard: wrestling, arcade game commentaries. We talk about comic books. We talk about MMA. So there's something on the network that you're most likely going to take a shine to. Check it out. The Facebook page is a great place to start, but we're at home on Stitcher Radio. So if you can find Stitcher, you're most likely going to be able to type in RADULICH right up there in the search box and find everything for the Rattleton Broadcasting Network. And hopefully there's something out there that you can listen and enjoy. So I just want to thank these wonderful gentlemen for bringing me on this podcast. I'm ready to get out of here. Mark Rattlich, sign us off, man.
All right, folks. For Hong Kong Phooey in our Canadian office, Mr. Andrew Graham. For the totally 80s, Pat Mullen, the punchy pugilist, and for the disapproving dad and the host of source material in his own right, Mrs. Jesse Starcher, I'm your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. This has been TV Party Tonight. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Save 50 to 70% off absolutely everything at Gap Factory. Even better, get 40% off clearance styles plus t-shirts from $4.99 and shorts from $9.99. And just in time for summer, save 50 to 70% off the entire store at Banana Republic Factory. Plus 50% off clearance and doorbuster dresses and polos starting at $19.99. Only at Banana Republic Factory stores. Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.